Welcome to everyone. Today we're going to elaborate on the usage of biorhythms software module by VedaPulse. The plan of our webinar so the first thing that we're going to talk about today is the basics of biorhythmology set forth by the Yellow Emperor. Then I'm going to tell you about the theory and practical usage of so-called open BAPs or biological active points. And in the end, I'm going to tell you how all this knowledge is performed in the biorhythmological module by VedaPulse, biorhythms. Then I will answer all your questions. Let me tell you a bit about myself. My name is Sergey Kosintsev. I am the developer of the program that we're going to talk about today. First of all, I have a medical degree, and also I am a master of metaphysical arts. My specialty, MD, PhD, I am a reflexology therapist, is to talk about specialty in particular. And let me explain a bit more about reflexology term here, because for English-speaking participants, it may mean something else. Usually in foreign medical society, by reflexology is meant the science of the influence on the biologically active points on feet. In Russian tradition, in Russian medicine, by reflexology we understand any influence that we may cause on the that we may bring on the any biological points, any area of the body. The scope of interests of mine, I am interested in multicultural metaphysical arts, traditional medicine, complementary and alternative types of medicine, bioelectronic medicine, and the innovative types of medicine such as biohacking and meta-training. And the most mysterious term here for you probably is the metaphysical arts. What is it? There is a special term in Chinese traditional medicine, 5 metaphysical arts. Those metaphysical branches of arts aimed at different types of working with energy. Those 5 different types of influence on the energy are there not only in the Chinese tradition, but also in the traditional medicines of many countries, many cultures. So the first metaphysical art of influencing the energy is Shangshu, is the Chinese term. It means mountain, practices aiming at getting the energy. In Chinese traditional medicine, those are such practices as Qigong and Tai Chi Chuan. In other cultures, we may say that we can say that yoga is also in this group, and Chinese practice Reiki. Sorry, Japanese. Why is it called mountain? Mountain is a place where we can feel the great amount of energy. Another reason for calling it mountain is that many other practices aiming at energy gaining and metaphysical arts practices were developed in the mountains. And also the practical working with biologically active points shows us that. It shows that when you use yoga, Qigong at the same time with working on biologically active points, the results that we get by working with biologically active points are more efficient. Another metaphysical art aiming at energy is called fate or Ming Shu. For us, the most usual term here is astrology. Any astrological systems are in this group. The next art is called prediction, Wu Shu, and the synchronicity with the current rhythm of qi. The classic example here is the Chinese book of changes, I Jin, the book of changes. We can also say that runas are in this group. Another type of metaphysical art, healing or creation of integrity, we may say. What does the term Wishu means itself? We understand that the person can be healthy only if he or she keeps to integrity or is being in a state of complete integrity of all the parts. The next metaphysical art is called contemplation type of art, Xiangshu. We contemplate the projections of energy on the person's body and in the nature. This method includes different types of medicinal diagnosis, for example, diagnosis by assessing the state of face. And Feng Shui, I think, is also in this group. And 5 metaphysical arts consider the influence on energy not as a separate, 5 separate branches, but as something unite. I have been into traditional Chinese medicine for quite a long, for 1996. In order we would be tuned in one wave, if I may say so, I would like to tell first of all about traditional medicine itself. What does it mean? This definition is taken from, is given by World Health Organization, is international. Traditional medicine is always associated with a particular culture. Here we mean China. It is supposed to have a documented theory and practice of influence, as well as a handed-down living tradition. One of the first and foremost representative manuscripts in this sphere is the Inner Canon of the Yellow Emperor. The ancientest part of this treatise is dated 200 years before Christ. The text itself consists of 2 parts. You can see their names on the slide. From the ancient Chinese language, it was translated by Bronislav Vinogorodsky. The ancient texts are written on the ancient Chinese language, on this language, Wengyang. Every language of every country underwent numbers of changes and had many innovations in it. And any language has the ancient version and the new one. We would probably be able to read after some training the text, but we won't get the meaning fully. Of course, it is the ancient Chinese language, but it doesn't mean that Chinese people would get it clearly and easily and better than Westerners. And Bronislav Vinogorodsky is one among the top 10 specialists specializing in the area of ancient Chinese language. And for Russian listeners, I advise to read the translation by Vinogorodsky, and for English-speaking listeners, you should find the best interpretation for reading. This is how the interpreter looks like, and he actively practices the Eastern healing practices. When we work with energy, we should not forget about the tripod rule or the triad rule. Everything that happens with us happens on 3 levels, either materia, energy, or information. Western tradition is mostly focused on the material level. Eastern tradition, Chinese tradition in particular, is focused on the concentrations of energy mostly. But of course, in Chinese tradition, there is also the information level to some extent. For example, the information level is more well expressed in Ayurveda, for example. But to succeed in healing practices, it is not enough to focus only on one level. We should combine material, energy, and information levels together. I'll give you a simple example. For example, to listen to me right now, you're using some electrical device. This represents the material level. But for the device to work, we need to charge the device. But even if the device is charged, it won't work if we would not install the software and programs needed. The same is for a person, for a human being. The person is supposed to have a healthy body. The body and the person is supposed to be charged with different types of energy, the energy that we get with food and with emotions. And the person has different programs, for example, the genetic program, like our DNA, and many social programs. You and me, we use speech all the time, but we do not realize that this is a program that was installed in us. There are many other programs that predispose our behavior and set forth the settings of understanding of what is good and what is bad, discrimination settings. So when you work with a patient, you should remember that you should collect all these three parts together. So getting closer to the module, let's overview three pillars that are essential for traditional Chinese medicine. To carry out the effective treatment, it is important to take into account the time of influence, method of influence, and place of influence. Here, first and foremost, is method of influence. The choice of method of influence depends on the nature of the disorder. According to Chinese medicine, disorders are divided into two big groups, cold disorders and hot disorders. In case the disease is of a heating nature, the hot nature, we use the cold methods of influence, and in traditional Chinese medicine it is mostly presented by needle acupuncture. There are also cold disorders, and they are greater in number than the hot ones. Here we use the warming methods of influence. Here we use the warming methods, or maybe some modern varieties such as laser therapy or light therapy. After that, we should choose the points of influence. But to tell the truth, the points are not available for the treatment 24/7. The specialist is supposed to assess visually or by palpatory method manually if the point is ready for the influence or not. And the specialist is supposed to know the ideal time for each point to be affected by our methods. The biorhythmological nature of the point is encoded in our program. The rhythms of the point performance and activity are defined by the movement of the sun, of the moon, and other cosmic factors. I guess all you know that the human being is not a nocturnal animal or not a nocturnal creature. It is a day creature. We may stay up all night, but in this case we will get many complications. If someone wakes you up at night and asks you to do some difficult challenge or task, you would not perform at your best for sure. And the same is for biologically active points. We are supposed to work with them when they are ready, when they are open or active or waking up. And ancient Chinese doctors knew about that, and it is written in the inner canon of Yellow Emperor. And here is the quotation of the manuscript. The breath of Qi gives birth to the 5 elements, and this is where the Qi breath of 3 different types of meridians appear. I will explain what does this 3 different types of meridians mean. I'm sure that you're all aware of 12 meridians, and they are connected and interconnected with a daily cycle and a monthly cycle, the cycle of 12 months. 12 months of the year are divided into 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, winter. Each season has starting point, middle point, and the end point, and it consists of 3 months. So the spring is associated with the first 3 meridians, starting with the long meridian. We can correlate spring, summer, autumn, and winter with each particular day. So the Chinese doctors say if the rhythm of the numbers of the seasonal cycle and daily cycle does not match, then pathogenic situation appears in the body. It means the person is not following the natural rhythms. It is the same as if you tried to stop the earth with your hands. But humans consider themselves as gods or kings and think that they can do everything that they want, but it's not the right thing to do. As a result, we get the development of great number of disorders, and the number is growing constantly. If we want to live long and happily, we should take into account the natural rhythms. There are several methods of identification of open points in traditional Chinese medicine. Many beginners who are just starting learning the medicine are getting frightened by the fact they do not know how to choose the correct method. And my answer is all the methods are correct and right. And I will share a secret with you, some notion which is not taken that good by the Europeans. One person simultaneously may be a child for someone, a parent for someone, a husband and a wife, and all this in one person. And the same is for biologically active points. Some points may supervise over other points. And at the same time, they may be supervised by other points. They may be equally strong in comparison to other points. We may say this is some kind of partnership, the partnership that we have, for example, between a husband and a wife. In different situations, Chinese specialists use different methods of defining the open points state. And the module biorhythms presents 2 major methods. I will share it with you.
Переведи пока.
The first method is called Zi Wu Lu Zhu. How do we understand this notion? The first interpretation is the theory of infusion and flowing of energy along the earthly branches. And another version is the flow and union of qi and blood, taking into account the time of flowing and ebbing. Flowing meaning the flows being in abundancy. Ebbing means the lack. I think you know that each meridian has the maximum time of activity, and in traditional Chinese medicine, it is marked or associated with different animals. Usually, a person is aware of the animal of the year of birth, but there are also responsible animals according to month, day, and hour of birth. In terms of usage it in practice, between each animal there stands a special condition of energy. And behind each animal there is a special element of wuxing. Some animal is associated with only one element. Some animals are associated with several elements. To practice Chinese medicine efficiently, it is not only enough to only know the maximum flow of energy at this or that particular moment. But the specialist also is supposed to know the situation with other 12 meridians and other elements in them. And here we have some technical challenge, technicality. Simply, not every person can withhold this amount of information in the memory. So if we do not train our brain, if we do not practice so-called meta-education, we cannot perform this method efficiently. Concluding on the first method, it is based on the wuxing system. And the second method is Ling Gui Ba Fa. It is translated literally as 8 methods of the intelligent or the holy turtle. The system is performed by trigrams. On the deeper level, each trigram is associated with one of the channels. We may say that points and channels which are associated with a particular trigramma are being the gates for energy. We may say that those points can open the gate of great energy inflow for us. The second system I've told you about is redirects or spreads the energy by different channels. So the secret is you should use these two methods in combination. There is no point in thinking about distribution of energy before we actually open the gates. So here we can see how it is performed in the module. Ziwu Lu Zhu is there in the Wuxin tab. And Ling Gui Ba Fa is there in the Qi tab. There are several points that work as keys for opening the gates for the energy. And here you can see the screenshot from the program itself. And this is for today. And in the program, you can see several fields highlighted in different colors. If the point is highlighted, anyhow, it means the better or the best time for influencing. And here several algorithms for estimation are used. I will also show you something else. Here you can see a square looking like this. This is the extra system or additional system of open points. Sometimes it stays aside the highlighted the highlighted areas. Sometimes it is included in them. Ideally, we should wait for the time when this special square falls into one of the highlighted spaces. Thus, you would get the best influence that you could get. You can always choose a particular point. You see that one window may include one point or several points, like here we can see 2 points. If we see the same, if you see the same in your recipe, it means that you have 2 different recommendations, 2 different points. Click the button, click the needed point, and you will see the description in the description window. Each point would be associated with particular parameters. You can check it out in the demo version of the program after the webinar. Unfortunately, it is too tiny here in the slides. Here we can find the common rhythms, common for all the people, and also the individual rhythms which are associated with your date of birth. This is why when you fill out the patient card in the program, put down the correct date of birth. It is important. It happens sometimes that a person or a specialist is in a hurry and fills down any number for date of birth and then starts working with biologically active points with a particular person. It's not the right thing to do. So the date of birth lies in the basis of the estimation provided by the program. So be attentive here, or either you would get no result, for example, no harm at all. Sorry, either you won't get result at all. It is like the best option here, and in worse variety, you would get the energy what would harm you. For example, a person has allergy to some food products, and according to recommendations provided basing on the wrong birth date, the person would start eating consciously, unconsciously, purposefully or not, some food products which are contraindicated for him or her. Also, the biorhythms software modules is complemented by the atlas of biologically active points. Here also, if you click on a particular point, you would get a description in the description window. To get the needed image, you would need to click BAP on the bottom of the screen, if you can see. And here is also the chart of all the cycle of the open points. For example, basing on recommendations on the particular points, you want to combine it with the influence on other point associated with one of the elements. You can open this chart and find the point here. So when you click on the point, you can see it in the description window, the time of the day, the date of the best time of influence for this point. For example, here we have the point which is actual now for today's, but we need to choose the next point for working. We click the point and switch to calendar tab in the bottom. And here we would see the date of the point that we have chosen highlighted for us. The same thing we can do using the chart of 5 elements. We can say that this chart represents the same thing as the previous one, but it is just the different angle of seeing things. The specialists who are just starting working with traditional Chinese methods usually work with this chart of elements. The specialists who work on the more deeper levels and understand Chinese signs, they use the more so this is the chart of 60 elements, which is commonly used by the specialists who work on the more deeper levels of knowledge within traditional Chinese medicine. Each element may be in different conditions in terms of energy. And this chart includes all this information. And now is the next chart. It is like the most complicated here. This chart is a summing up or the summing result of my research within traditional Chinese medicine. It is called 60 individual points. This is the name that we use in Biorhythms software module. It is like more easy version, 60 individual points. But me personally, I used more complicated term here, chakra the individual points. Why 60? Each channel has 5 points on it, and the points represent 5 elements. There are 12 channels, multiply 12 by 5 and we get 60. And there is also the point which is associated with the date of birth of yours. It is there in the middle of the chart. And then, following a special daily cycle and monthly cycle, the points are there in a particular sequence, go in a particular sequence. Each point is associated with a particular condition of the person. You can see that there are 5 levels on this chart. So the first level is the central level. The next one is the second level. There goes third, fourth, and fifth levels. The first level, or the central level, the inner one, is associated mostly with the body of the person. The second level is associated mostly with our emotions and endocrine system. And the rest 3 levels are the sub-levels of our information system. We can say that this is our conscious, our soul, and our spirit. And taking from this chart the most important points. If you remember, in the very beginning of the webinars, I told you that there are 3 groups of channels. So we have the beginning of the season, for example, or the month or the day, the beginning, the middle, and the end. And those points in the season or month are associated with particular points on the body. This is what in Ayurveda is called Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. The points of the beginning are the points associated with Vata dosha. The points associated with the middle are Pitta points. And the points associated with Kapha dosha are the points of ending of the season or whatever. So you could see the correlations with Ayurveda and get them by clicking the corresponding tabs in the biorhythm. So another example of the major or the essential points, the triad points. This triad are the 3 levels of influence I've told you about: the material level, energy level, and information level. You can click the tab and see 3 biologically active points highlighted in green. The point which is in the middle is associated with the material existence. And the point that I'm showing now would always be here in this spot, and it is associated with the energy existence. And here is the point on the 4th level, and it is associated with the informational existence. It is better to influence all 3 points simultaneously. But you should focus on one of the points here a little bit more. And the focus that you do is supposed to be of the same nature as the point itself. For example, if you need to influence on the point which is associated with the physical levels, with such a point, it is better to use physical influence, such as massage, for example, but needles won't do here. It is better to use warm influence when you work with energy point. The easiest and the best method of influence here is just to rub the point with your own fingertips till you feel the heat. And you should influence the information point with information tools. What available tool of information influence do we have? Those who have already worked with our modules know that there are such ways of influence as EHF therapy. EHF therapy is being the information influence that we need. Or we can apply some homeopathic remedy on this point. And those who know how to work correctly with mudras can perform special information mudra. This mudra is called the energy mudra or mudra of energy, and this is the way of influencing the information point. And there are also two other points. They are called the points of rhythm. The points are associated with the state of overloading, total overloading of the system. In the state of overloading, our systems all the systems get activated by the fear. And the major fear we have in our life is the fear for death. In case you have some fears in your life troubling you a lot, for example, a fear of death or something, you can work with this point, at the same time imagining the thing that you're afraid the most. Plus, those points have additional meanings. For example, the point which is being there in the central part or central level, I'm showing it to you. It removes the negative magnetic influence, geomagnetic influence. It adds up the energy levels. It influences mostly the area of the heart and chest. And the second point, I'm showing it to you now. It can make you more attractive to other people. It works on your attractiveness, but only after you resolve all the problems associated with fears. Some fears that we have sometimes are there, they are unnoticeable, and they get activated when we are in the situations that we are afraid of. For example, being being speakers for the great audience. So if you have any fears, you can influence the point which is being there in this particular position. The points which are listed there in the program are the same, all the same 60 points. In the program, they are the same, but for each particular individual, the individual points would be highlighted. There are certain features for each point, the specialty of each point, and it will remain stable. It is fixated for each point. It won't change. But there are also 60 additional features for the points, and for each particular person, they would differ. You can learn a lot about those individual features in the 60 individual points tab in Biorhythms software module by VedaPulse. So this is the information that I wanted to share with you, and now I'm ready to answer your questions. And the first question, the recipe usually contains several points, and they may be active in different times of the day. How should we use the recipe in the context of biorhythms? Here we have the following approach. Here you're supposed to focus on one major point. If you have several points in the recommendation, it is supposed to be the point associated with 5 elements or the point from the key tab. So you choose the point, and it is supposed to be influenced first during the treatment, or at least it should go the second. And you can find the point in different charts in biorhythms.
Второй вопрос. Как подобрать коррекцию биоритмов?
The second question is how to select the correction, how to create the correction program for biorhythms. So to create a correct program for correction of biorhythms, you can use the major recipe. I can show it to you now. It is better to choose a particular day of the week when you would perform the treatment. And during this day, you can influence the points from this highlighted square in the chart, in this chart. Click the point and you would see the recipe here. Here you would see two different types of recipes. One is from traditional Chinese medicine and another is from Ayurveda. The difference between those two different types of influence, TCM and Ayurveda, the influence that we provide according to the recommendations of TCM is usually more intense or powerful, and we may get the intensive response in the form of some troubling state. The Ayurveda recipe is more mild. It is recommended for the weekend, for the patients who are weak. It is better to stick with one day of the week, and it is ideal if you stick with the day of the week of your birth. What if we see that this square falls into night time? It is not necessary to wake up at night. You can do the following thing. So before going to bed, you should apply tsuba or grains or a grain on this point. Apply it with a patch. And the second question is where to find the information on mudras for correction of health. For working with biologically active points, I work with only one special mudra, and I have already mentioned it. It is mudra of energy or energy mudra. The common or like the folk name for this mudra is the goat, or the configuration of the fingers for like heavy metal singers. For what purpose do we use the doshas points and triad points? In case you are aware of your dosha imbalance, you can perform the influence through the biologically active points on the particular doshas. And triad points help you to activate the needed level. And some extra information on triad. Physical level is not that essential here because it is the field of academic medicine, if we may say so. In case the person has some problem and has been dealing with it for many years and cannot manage it on physical level, it means that the problem is on the energy level or information level. In case of abundant emotions or depressive states, it means that the state of the person is associated with the energy level. In case the person thinks that the disorder is like the punishment for something, or something of the same nature, it means that the disorder is rooted in the information level. It is associated with some negative settings in the person's mind. Another question is the influence would strengthen or weaken the corresponding dosha or level, and the doctor says that the influence would harmonize, would balance. And another question, the function of the point is determined by its position in the scheme. If we're talking about the 60 individual point chart, yes. So there is an information that with the deviation of the earthly axis, there was a deviation of meridians as well as marma points. And here is the answer. You should always be in a position to feel the point with your fingertips, or you should see it visually on the patient. You should identify the actual position of the point. Each particular point is not fixated there in one particular place. Sometimes it shifts a little bit to the left, to the right, up or down. This is why you should learn how to feel the point, so it would be easy for you to know their position. To learn to feel the point, you should always touch or palpate the point before the influence, and this would provide you the information for further feeling the point right. So the question, in the colored chart of 5 elements, do the colors represent Vata, Pitta, and Kapha influence? No, the colors stand for the different elements here. This is this chart. The green color is the earth element or soil element. The red is fire. So, sorry, the green color stands for the wood element. The red is for fire. Sorry, yellow is for the earth element. The white one is metal. And the blue one is water. According to NASA information, the astrological signs meaning has changed. How should it be correlated with the ancient medicine? Yeah, in the name we can see some association with astrology, but it is not the Western astrology. This is associated with mostly the flow of energy, the change of energy, which in its turn influences the astrological system. Energy is one, it is unite, but we take it differently. For example, we can take it as two concepts, yin and yang. If we consider it to be consisting of 3 parts, we name it as Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and according to Chinese tradition, it is like the sky, earth, a human being, triad. Another question is, if the person has the intense reaction to the changes in the weather, especially after they had the surgical intervention, how to work with such people? In this case, the rhythm points are best because they stabilize this geomagnetic interconnection. Another option here that we may use, it is better for women. It is associated with the lunar cycle. In case the person has a regular worsening of the condition, let the person have like the calendar of the worsenings. Usually, exacerbations of the condition falls onto a particular lunar day, but it is not necessarily the same day, the same lunar cycle. But not necessarily each month. In case you notice such connection, you should start working with the points 1 or 2 days before this particular lunar day when you have exacerbation. The next question is, what methods are best for influencing the points? It is better if the patient influence or massage his own points with his own on his own. The pressure is supposed to be of a moderate nature, so the person is supposed to feel some discomfort maybe, but not the pain. The time of influence is about 3 minutes, but not more than 5 minutes. There is the next question is, if we overlay the astrology chart with the meridian chart, will it show the influence of the animal? And the doctor says that there is a shift of Western astrology and Eastern astrology by a fortnight. If you want to work with biorhythms, it is better to work with Chinese astrology. It is called by Zi. But Zi is translated literally as 8 hieroglyphs. The next question is, the influence of heat and sun lower the levels of energy drastically and worsen the condition of the person. How can we help? It means that we should use the cold methods here and avoid heat. So here we have like mostly lifestyle recommendations. The person should exclude all the heating food products. For example, now it is summer season, you should eat more greens. Another question is, can we say that each person has an individual time for going to the best individual time for going to bed, for example, or it's just like in Ayurveda, the most suitable time for everyone is starting 8 p.m. till 10 p.m. and the time of waking up. Are there people who are like contraindicated to get up early? Our body is controlled by the nervous system, and nervous system has a particular time for rest. And this time is between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. In case you do not sleep during this period of time between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., your workability or your performance during the next day would be worse. When you're young, you won't feel it much, but the older you get, the more difficult it would be for you. So the answer is, yeah, before 11 p.m., we should go to bed. And about waking up, now you can estimate it or assess it technically. For example, now there are special fitness bracelets that you can wear that estimate, they have like sleeping tracker that you could use. For example, I personally used the Huawei tracker, and it also shows the quality of the sleep. And there are special graphics that you could use to check out the time which is better for you to wake up. Because during the sleep, we do not use all the time of the sleep for rest, actually. There is a special phase of the sleep during which the system actually is having rest. And when you close to waking up in the early morning, this phase is just faded away. And in case this phase is faded away, but you continue sleeping, nevertheless you have more hours to sleep, you would feel like you had a lack of sleep. So I recommend that you use the sleep tracker bracelet, and all those people who address me for consultation, I start consulting and dealing with their health only after they acquire some fitness bracelet. In case of the lack of energy in the meridian, should we wait for the activation day for the point to tonify the point? The biorhythm system is quite a complicated thing. It is better if you use the particular day of the week for the influence. I have mentioned this methodics today. In case we try to work on our health at the particular day of the week, at the particular time, our body starts building its own rhythm of health around this time. In case we use particular key points and wuxing points, our body will get the deepest restoration. And the major thing about the biorhythm module, it is not there to for us to see the changes, to catch the changes and to do something with those changes. It's something else. The thing is, it is there for us to learn to follow the natural rhythms or waves of the nature. And since we are a social creatures, and the leading cycle for us is the weekly cycle, it is better if we use the weekly cycle here. Another question is, what is the sequence of influencing? We should first influence the key points or wuxing points, or vice versa. You should check out the recipe and perform the treatment according to the recipe. Another question is, do we get the same influence by using herbs? It is not possible to fully answer this question now because you should combine particular herbs with particular recommended points and particular condition of the person. There are more nuances. For example, the same herb, which has the same name, but grown in different places, in different countries, would have some different effect anyway. And the effect would differ according to if we use the herb during daytime or in the morning or in the evening. We should take all those factors into account. And here, here's the end of our lecture. We're done with all the questions. Thank you very much for your attention and your interesting questions. Goodbye.